mama girl. Rotate for your mama girl. And shake for your mama, 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 mama girl. I'm impressed, oh God. I must confess that you turn me on. Nothing less when you're moving your back around, up, then down, go down, go down. Mama give you good conscience. I could see that in your jeans. When you wine get on and create a scene, make you I just can't believe. Ulele, 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 eh. Ooh baby, eh. Ooh yeah, eh. Girl, shake for your mama, shake for your mama, yo. Shake for your mother, roll back for your mama, yo. Shake for your mama, shake for your mama, yo. Shake for your mother, roll back for your mama.
Baby, you, girl, wherever you are, whatever you do, stay the way that you are, wherever you go. Yeah, what you're contemplating on, don't hold back at all. So free up yourself and just let go now. Come off your phone now. Make that go now. What you waiting for? We have been out for more. Just a jump too far. Come a little closer, and I love you totally. When you want me, you want up, baby. When you're rolling it back, it's only you. However you want it, you got it from me. You got it, yeah. Girl, I'll be there for you. Oh, da, da. When the rhythm jam you, oh, da, da. Like a river coming, oh, da, da. I'll be there for you. Oh, da, da. Let the rhythm hold you, oh, da, da. Like a river coming, oh, da, da. Baby, you, girl, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Whatever you want, man, is the way you move. Nobody I know. Could I do what you do when you jam me that way? So jam me that way. Hey, so free up yourself and just let go now. Girl, come off your phone now. Make that bam bam roll now. What you waiting for? People coming down from all over. Just a jump to soca. Come a little closer. I'll be yours eternally. When you want me, you wind up, baby. When you're rolling it back, it's only you. Yeah. However you want it, you got it from me. You got it, yeah. Girl, I'll be there for you. Oh, la, la, la. When the rhythm jam you, oh, la, la, la. Like a river coming, oh, la,
Cock up your spine when you walk your man, he could never be snoring. Girl, your body wet like when rain pouring. Wine in the contest, girl, you showing. So every girl start rock out if your body good and if your man can't manage it, on him night and day. I'm longing for your love, baby. I'm longing for your touch, baby. Night and day.
Well, alright, now this a bubbling queen. Walk it up, get me walking up steam. Any man back at me, them a be happy when me rocky bend back. Tick tack it and I set it up. Make him a feel like say a sweet dream. Bumper so big it a tear out jeans. Love how you wine for me, love how you roll for me. That's why I'm singing night and day. I'm longing for your love, baby. Be your love. I'm longing for your touch, baby. Be your touch. Night and day. Be your love.
mercy please, for life she begging. When she hears her to the mark she heading. Says she broke out at the age of 7, strip dancing before she reached 11. One man can't satisfy her, she needs more wood for the fire. 6 price getting higher, and more money she require. Oh, score and land she desire. So from the prostitution work she won't retire. Flames and fire, sunny spoon, burn the flesh seller and the buyer. Says she want a man to take her to the movies, then another set to buy her pearls and rubies.
Getting
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the official renaming ceremony of the Glebe Polyclinic. My name is Belle Holder. I'll be serving as your Master of Ceremonies for this evening. I take this opportunity to say a special good evening and welcome to the Honorable Mia Amor-Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados. To Dr. the Honorable William F. Duguid, Senior Minister in the Prime Minister's Office. Welcome to Dr. the Honorable Sonia Brown, Acting Minister of Health and Wellness. Welcome to the Honorable Dwight Sutherland, Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance. To the Honorable Kirk Humphrey, Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. Good evening and welcome to the Honorable Kay McConney, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. To the Honorable Tony Moore, MP and Representative for St. George North. To the Most Honorable Janet Phillips, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health and Wellness. Good evening and welcome to Dr. the Most Honorable Kenneth George, Chief Medical Officer of Health. To the children of the late Frederick Miller, Dame Billy Miller, Mr. Luther Miller, and Mrs. Cecile Hadgu, welcome. Other relatives of the late Frederick Miller, Sului Tull, officials in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, all specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is a really, really special occasion to be here. And let's start this evening with an opening prayer delivered by Senator Reverend Dr. John Rogers.
You may remain seated for the prayers. Let us bow our heads in thanksgiving to Almighty God for all the blessings He has given us. Almighty and ever-living God, You are the creator of all things in heaven and earth and the source of every blessing. We give You thanks for the varied gifts with which You endowed Your people and for the zeal and fervor with which they use them. And as Ben Sirach told us, we must praise famous people in their several generations. Today we gather to give thanks to You for the life, work, and witness of Your servant Frederick Miller, for the love and mercy he received from You and shared so freely with the people of this area. And now today, as we gather to name this edifice in his honor, we pray that the fervor and the zeal with which he served Your people may permeate the walls of this polyclinic, that all who come here may experience Your love, care, empathy, compassion, and leave healed and revived to serve You in Your world. And now, Heavenly Father, we ask Your blessings upon our proceedings this evening, that all that transpires here may be a reflection of Your honor and glory. These things we ask through the merits and mediation of Your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Rogers. Ladies and gentlemen, happy independence. It is no accident that this is happening when we're celebrating the anniversary of our independence. And I want to take the pleasure of saying welcome to St. George. Yeah, make some noise for St. George, come on. Welcome to St. George, everybody. Unique in that it's the only parish to border 5 or 6 different parishes. You understand the importance of St. George. We are in the center of the island. And those who built this nation through their hard work and contributions towards positive change and also create a legacy of those through familial generations for those who also serve. To deliver the welcome this evening, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to the Medical Officer of Health for the Glebe Polyclinic, Dr. Carl Ward.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a good thing I came here because I forgot my car key. Right, so the protocol having been established, and I'm very thankful that it was, sorry. Tell me when you're ready. Good? Thank you. Right, protocol having been established, and I'm glad it has been established, because when Deputy Permanent Secretary gave me the protocol list, I asked her, well, how much time do I actually have? This is rather long. And when she told me that, no big thing, you have about half an hour, I was like, oh, that's okay. But I won't do that to y'all. So good afternoon again. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome all of you here, and again to extend a proper St. George welcome. It's great to see the Honorable Prime Minister and so many members of Cabinet, so many persons who are senior in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, showing exactly how important an occasion like this is. As a doctor who deals with, well, public health, but I also deal with sport, you know, you have arms and feet, hands, you have head, you have neck, all sorts of body parts, but when you go to the gym, they always tell you that your core has to be good. If your core isn't good, nothing is happening after that. And therefore, just as the MC mentioned, I'm happy to welcome you to the center of the island, to the core, to the heart of Barbados. See, you know, the St. George MPs know what I'm talking about, right? Right? The cardiologists, colleagues of mine will let you know that you also can't live without a heart, right? So I can take that even further. I am very thankful that you're here. I recognize that you would have given up a Sunday afternoon. I know that some of you might be trying to sneak a peek to see what's going on with Germany versus Spain, right? But again, that goes to show your level of commitment towards what's going on here and to public health in Barbados. I therefore, again, I'm not going to stay any longer. I'm not going to take up my 30 minutes. I hope that you would enjoy this ceremony, that it would be meaningful. And as the Reverend mentioned, there will be a blessing that would carry forward throughout this clinic as we look to call Glebe soon from now a rose by another name. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. Thank you, Dr. Ward, and we also acknowledge the fabulous tie that Dr. Ward is wearing this afternoon. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will hear from Parliamentary Representative for St. George North, the Honorable Tony Moore. Please give him her a warm welcome.
Good evening to everybody. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you. And if there's anyone who believes that they are well-suited to be saying welcome to St. George, and welcome to St. George North, and welcome to the Glebe in St. George North, which is truly at the core of Barbados, Dwight. Glebe is as central to Barbados as central would be. And so I welcome you. I stand here this evening not to fill you with a lot of words, but just to share a few brief remarks. It is my distinct honor. This month marks only 2 years for me. 2 years and 2 weeks, and I could probably count the minutes. But today we are here to honor one who has served not only St. George North, but who has served St. George, and more widely Barbados with distinction in a number of capacities. This evening we focus on the 18 years that he has had contributed dedicated service to the people of St. George, and particularly in the portfolio of health. And for me, why I say it is an honor not only as the MP for the area, but his journey even before the Ministry of Health and even before becoming parliamentary representative. His journey would have involved another one of my passions and something that's very dear to me, service in the movement of labor. And that is where he found his passion for politics. 18 years as parliamentary rep. I've served 18 years now in the labor movement, only 8 of those as general secretary. And this evening is not just about a naming for me, therefore, but is a recognition that in everything we do, all of us will not live to see the reward of our labor. Our families will not necessarily see in any significant ways any instances of appreciation, of thanks for the sacrifices that we have made. But what is signal here for me this evening is that this represents a passing on of a baton in many respects, not only to family members who have learned or who had learned from the late Freddie Miller and what passion and service and commitment is all about, like our very own, and one who's very dear to me in terms of the inspiration and leadership that she was able to give as a woman, Dame Billy, and other siblings and family members. But it signals to us, to me, a young parliamentarian, what true service is all about, what dedication is all about, what commitment is all about, and that years after, sacrifice, service, dedication, and commitment can be honored. And so it's a privilege of mine to be here as a part of this ceremony and to signal to all of us and to encourage all of us that it is not about the stripes and it's not about the bells and whistles, but what we are doing here this evening in renaming the Polyclinic represents what being Bajan, and in this season of independence, is really important that we are paying tribute at this time. What being Bajan is all about, giving of our best, not for ourselves or to benefit for ourselves, but giving of our best to communities, to the people who we're around, service. That is what being a republic or being people in a republic of Barbados is truly all about. So we look forward to the renaming. We look forward to all the policy statements and everything else that we will be hearing this evening. And again, I say to you, welcome to St. George North, and we look forward to the rest of the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moore. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to offer a word of remarks, please welcome Minister of State in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, who is today Minister of Health and Wellness Acting. Please give her a warm welcome, the Honorable Sonia Brown.
Protocol already been established. I want to say one thing. I can't wait till the St. Philip Polyclinic is renamed. Because then you all will get to see where the sun rises first. Which is the real center of St. Philip. But that too shall come. When St. George can honestly say the Republic of St. George, like St. Philip is the Republic of St. Philip, then you will get me to agree. That being said, I want to say good evening to all of you. This evening's ceremony is a public display of national gratitude, and it's an occasion to inspire all of us to work in such a manner that we leave this island better than how we found it. And this is the fine example left behind by the gentleman whose name will, from this day, signify that this polyclinic here in St. George, dignify this polyclinic. This afternoon's ceremony is therefore yet another reminder of our continued commitment to celebrate our people and to pay homage to all those who, through their selfless deeds, made invaluable contributions to the sustained development of Barbados. On this occasion, it is in the critical area of health and wellness. Interestingly enough, this expression of our national gratitude is rooted in a decision made by the Cabinet of Barbados during a meeting of August 2011, where there was a unanimous agreement to the renaming of all polyclinics. This came as a result of the Ministry of Health and Wellness's proposal to rename those healthcare institutions which had not yet been renamed, and to do so in honor of individuals who made a significant contribution to the health sector and the general development of healthcare in Barbados. Such a celebration remains part of government's resolve to promote the continued development of community life in Barbados and to give ordinary Barbadians the opportunity to emulate the invaluable contributions of their peers and neighbors alike, while bringing national focus to what it means to be truly Barbadian and to pass on the intrinsic values of who we are as a people. I am honored as I celebrate the life and contribution of yet another outstanding Barbadian and healthcare professional, the late Mr. Freddie Miller. We do acknowledge that many of our youngsters, including this youngster now standing before you, before he was asked to give these remarks, might know very little of Freddie Miller. Therefore, it is important that his legacy as a solutions-oriented individual, well ahead of his time, and a man committed to the overall development of the individual, be kept alive. Now, after the 1937 riots, Freddie Miller joined the growing labor movement, and in 1948 was elected to serve the people of St. George in the House of Parliament, which he did for 18 unbroken years. During Mr. Miller's tenure as a Member of Parliament, he held a ministerial portfolio of health and social services from 1956 to 1961. By the time Barbados achieved independence in 1966, much of the infrastructure for the delivery of its social programs was already in place due to the dedication and hard work of the late Freddie Miller. Under his watch, construction commenced for the new General Hospital at Martindale's Road. A new block of 40 beds for tuberculosis cases was erected at the General Hospital, and government provided funds to enable all drugs used in the treatment of TB at the St. Michael Chest Clinic to be supplied free of charge. Their nurseries were recognized as a necessity in Barbados. One such was Brenmore Day Nursery at Ellerton St. George, which was one of the nurseries maintained with the financial support of government. Old age pension was increased. Many communal baths all across Barbados were put in place. The Esplanade in Spikestown was constructed. In 1961, Barbados was awarded the Kettering Shield for marked progress made in the field of child and maternal welfare during the previous 5 years. A youth camp called Youth Town was started in 1958. Several handicraft centers were established around the island for teaching domestic science. The Central Council for Sports, with a view to improving the standard of all branches of sport, was established in 1960, and a full-time officer and cricket coach in the person of the late cricket legend Sir Everton Weeks was provided. I'm almost breathless already. A social welfare department concerned with the welfare and social and cultural development of the whole community was established. As it relates to offenders, he was resolute in his belief that the focus should be on rehabilitation rather than punishment. An environmental sanitation program that improved sanitary conditions in households was introduced in 1959. The school visual and dental program for children was launched. A medical aid scheme was introduced in 1959, where government provided funds for assisting with medical treatment overseas, as in the case now, in cases of serious illness, where individuals concerned were not in a position to pay for such treatment with their own resources. In December of 1960, he opened the first district hospital, together with an outpatients clinic and dispensary in Oistins. In May 1954, a voluntary family planning association was formed under his stewardship, and the first local clinic was started in 1955. It was expanded in 1958, and in 1961, it became one of the precursors for the modern polyclinic. Minister Miller's vision for Planned Parenthood was supported by the Cabinet and government's provision of a subsidy to the Family Planning Association, an institution that continues to shape the lives of ordinary Barbadians at all levels of society. Added to that, he expanded the work of the General Hospital and built many healthcare centers and outpatient clinics across Barbados. These were all sort of forerunners to the modern-day polyclinics. Prior to 1961, he opened healthcare centers in Speightstown, Enmore, Oistins, and 1 and 6 Roads. Can you imagine a Barbados without all these great achievements? These gains have led to the empowerment and enfranchisement of women, of families, by family planning initiatives, now probably working a bit too well. They have led to not only easy, but free access to health care. He even started a process of bringing sports to the forefront. If I could see inside your chest, then Billy, I would see a heart swollen with pride to match the smile on your faces and all of the faces of your relatives. And rest assured that the people of this community of St. George feel the same. Among his greatest achievements was the number of significant legislative reforms he introduced during his tenure as a Member of Parliament. In large measure, this contributed to the enactment of the Public Health Act in 1954 and the Local Government Act in 1958. As Minister of Health and Social Services, the Honorable Frederick Miller laid a foundation for the introduction of a more comprehensive primary health care system in the 1960s, evidenced by the opening of the then newly built 550-bed Queen Elizabeth Hospital in 1964. Therefore, by their fruits, you shall know them. The invaluable contribution of Mr. Miller to the social re-engineering of the Barbadian society is felt in today's modern polyclinic. And the clinic must therefore not be seen as a healthcare institution only, but its unique positioning in society must be viewed as a principal point of interaction among Barbadian communities, in a way that must allow them to be both catalysts for change and a place where timely social interventions can be had for the betterment of society. Such an approach, therefore, must be the basis for the provision of preventative and curative action to the challenges of our nation's health, while giving voice to even the most vulnerable within our society. While acknowledging the sterling contribution provided by the polyclinics across Barbados, the ministry remains cognizant that our healthcare system has experienced significant change and transformation over the years. It is in this regard that I take this opportunity to challenge my colleagues within the ministry to continue to allow our stewardship to be people-centered as we strive to meet the heightened demands of a demographic that is not only diversely complex in its composition, but is also ambitiously exacting in its aspirations. However, and correspondingly so, our reform of the primary healthcare system foresees an environment which will continue to prioritize the development of an equitable, efficient, and accessible healthcare system with emphasis on wellness of the individual. Emphasis must also be placed on the formulation of a policy and strategic regime that must guide the reorganization and reinventing of primary healthcare services. Ladies and gentlemen, our resolve towards building a stronger, smarter, and more effective health infrastructure is embodied in the expected outcome of today's business of renaming this Glebe Polyclinic in that of the people's servant, the late Frederick Freddie Miller. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. You know, ladies and gentlemen, today's special renaming ensures that the work of Frederick Miller will never, ever be taken for granted, especially by young Barbadians who now have the opportunity to learn all about the work that he has done. And when you listen to the contribution that was just made by Dr. Brown, it's difficult to even fathom that Mr. Miller had time for a personal life. But he did have personal interests, and we understand that he was a lover of the saxophone and himself a saxophone player. Well, just this month, a young Barbadian received the first Head Start Music Scholarship to Berklee College of Music in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you saxophonist Mr. Daniel Harvey. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Harvey. What is it about the saxophone? What is it? Yeah, he has sax appeal. So, Daniel, your navel string is buried in St. George? It is, ladies and gentlemen. And we wish him well. Of course, he's got the entire island behind him as he heads off to Berklee College of Music. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for a young, talented Barbadian. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attention to the Honorable Mia Amar Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, to deliver the feature address. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Belle. Protocols haven't been observed. I say simply to Sonia that I'm acutely aware now of her capacity to ball Yorkers. And if I had any doubt about it, she displayed it with aplomb this evening. But I simply say to her as well that without sunset, sunrise sometimes is not worth it. And for those of us who have the honor to be on the western coast, from St. Michael to St. James to St. Peter to St. Lucie, I claim, therefore, that we are the destination that you have all been looking for. All jokes aside, Sonia really delivered the feature address this evening, and I want to thank her for it. My role this evening is very simple: to be able to reinforce a few points, and Dame Billy, members of the Miller family, Luther, Cecil, I'm sure Buddy is listening, and I'm equally sure Tim and Atlee are listening from wherever they are. It is with pride that, as leader of the Barbados Labour Party, I ask you to attend this ceremony this evening and to be able to pay tribute to one of the first members of a cabinet of a Barbados Labour Party government. We talked a lot just now about where it starts and where it ends. The truth is, we know where it starts, and for the rest of us, it is a relay with a baton being passed on to each successive generation. And the truth also is that one of the things that has given us greatest pride as a party and as a nation is that our foundation was strong. Our foundation was strong. Today, I co-chair the Sustainable Development Goals with Prime Minister Trudeau, the advocates that have been appointed across the world. And every time I look at the SDG goals, the SDG agenda, I say to myself, but this is the agenda that Barbados set itself as a developing nation. And this is the agenda that Barbados, across political parties, has worked for as a nation. And it perhaps should come as no surprise to those who are from this parish, St. George, because in a very real sense, even though Sir Grantley led and he was involved in St. Joseph, the truth is that it was the combined efforts of persons representing St. George that perhaps has had more impact on this country's social and economic development than most parishes. This parish, for whatever reason, has been able to attract labor in every sense of the word. It has been able to attract labor movement, having had the first General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union as its Member of Parliament, having had Freddie Miller, who worked and came through the labor movement as its Member of Parliament, and having had now as its current Member of Parliament, the first woman ever to be General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union, and only the fourth General Secretary in 8 years. Similarly, this parish was the place that Errol Barrow cut his teeth. This is where he learned his politics, and this is where he developed his strong commitment to the social empowerment and indeed to the desire for the independence of this nation. Having left the Barbados Labour Party, he went to St. John, but it was in St. George that Errol Barrow first cut his teeth as a Member of Parliament in this country. And I say these things because when you really study the list of achievements that Dr. Brown enumerated in her speech, and you study that these things were done in the 50s and 60s, and you study the fact that that single main hospital that Freddie Miller caused to be built with the Barbados Labour Party cabinet at the time, with the groundbreaking of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, is still the primary anchor for healthcare in this country, you begin to understand the magnitude of the vision that was there. Similarly, one might argue the same with the Deepwater Harbour. Similarly, one might argue the same with education and the building out of capacity, and then the beauty of Barbados, the seamless continuity of policy across political parties. There are a few things that I will fight for the rest of my life, and one will be for the seamless continuity, because this country cannot afford the luxury of the disruption of policy or the disruption of trajectory in terms of development, because we simply do not have the buffer to be able to recover, as we are learning through the lost decade. The reality is that the world in which we live is truly, truly challenged on so many fronts. And therefore, it is important that we garner everything that we have in order to become resilient. This morning, we spoke in our independence service about resilience and strength. And we need to ensure that we are fit for purpose because of the world in which we live, and the world that is likely, in my view, humbly, to have at least another 10 to 20 years of instability. We woke this morning to scenes as far as they could be from here, but showing that even in the mightiest of countries, people are anxious and people are fearful and people want to express themselves. This is the world in which we live. But if we're going to be fit for purpose, then, Billy, there are a few things that you taught me at the beginning of my political career in the handing over of that knowledge and body of values that is so critical, that I call the baton. You were the one who reinforced in me those words from the Talmud that I quote over and over and over, not just here, but wherever I go, that we are not expected to complete the task, but neither are we at liberty from resigning from it. Those words, when anchored with an approach to public life, have been the anchor that I have personally depended on over the course of the last 3 decades. And what is that? That services must be brought to the people and not people to services. And that has been the philosophy of the Barbados Labour Party, and I therefore am happy to lead a government that has reinforced that, perhaps more so in healthcare in this government's administration than any other area. When we came to office, the St. Joseph Polyclinic was effectively derelict and not functioning. When we came to office, the St. Andrew Polyclinic equally was not functioning. In both instances, even during the course of a pandemic, the Ministry of Health and its leadership found it possible to be able to restore those services to the people of St. Joseph and to the people of St. Andrew. And I say yet again, thank you for that, because that is part and parcel of us carrying services to the people rather than bringing people to the services. Similarly, at this polyclinic at the Glebe here, and you know, it is funny, we're talking very glibly this evening, but none of us has recalled that the policy framework for polyclinics was settled by none other than Dame Billy as Minister of Health in 1978. And that therefore much of what we are doing, even though we are paying tribute to her father, she was the one, in fact, who literally led the expansion of modern polyclinics in Barbados as we have come to know them. And we salute you, Billy. The modesty of the lady would suggest that the honor goes to her father rather than being claimed by herself. And that in and of itself deserves our commendation and salutations for your ability to recognize that you stood on the shoulders of, as opposed to simply was the one who started it in 1978. Thank you for that yet again. But the decentralization of services remains critical to this country if we are to become fit for purpose. Decentralization in terms of schools, in terms of polyclinics, in terms of community centers, in terms of lighting, in terms of hard courts, in terms of every aspect of what it takes for a community to be fit. And yes, for those who say, but you're only 166 square miles, that is true. But within that 166 square miles, it is critical to keep each community whole. If we doubted it, we begin to see now what happens when the social fabric of our country starts to become tattered. And it starts to be tattered when we do not accept the responsibilities as individuals to do the things that are necessary to keep the whole intact. Our mission, and you'll hear me speak about this a lot more going forward, but one of our key aspects of our mission must be to keep people healthy and safe. And if we're going to keep people healthy and safe, then by definition, as we learned during the pandemic, Dr. George, what happens? That it can't be done purely by the public sector alone. It is a combined effort of all of us accepting responsibility, accepting not only that there should be a decentralization of services, but a devolution of power, and a recognition that each one of us carries part of the load to make it possible. You hear me say all the time, many hands make light work. And that's not just a trite statement. If every family in this country took care of those who they were to take care of, raised them knowing the difference between right and wrong, giving them the moral compass that is necessary to literally navigate their way through life, and then, along with the partnerships of which I spoke earlier this week at the Pan American Health Organization 120th anniversary, the partnerships that are so critical to be able to leverage what we each bring to the table, the partnership of free education, the partnership of access to primary health care, the partnership of being able to have access to community services, the partnership of being able to have a sporting community as a platform. These are the things that successive governments have fought for to be decentralized and to be provided for the services that we have. And the question is, therefore, why are we lagging on both sides? We're lagging at the side of the household because sometimes we have not spoken enough to allow our people to know that they have weight to carry in each and every household, and that a child will not be raised by accident. Reverend Rogers, you speak about it all of the time in many of your sermons, and I thank you for that. But similarly, we also within the public service have to do better to recognize that we are also serving a class of people. And service reminds us, therefore, that we have to humble ourselves and listen to what people are saying and what people need, and not just believe that because we are doing a good thing, it must be done. The truth is that there is work to be done on both sides. But I have every confidence that this country is up to the task. And I have every confidence that this conversation can take place at no better time than our independence and our celebration of our republic. The truth is that this country has always been built on the need to be resilient, because those who came here would not have survived any other way. But it has equally been built on the precepts of sacrifice and commitment and loyalty and thinking out of the box. And I begin to ask myself, have we communicated that sufficiently to successive generations? And have we passed the baton sufficiently? These are the conversations that I hope that this nation, as a country that is seeking to forge its early years as a republic in the context and the shadow of the Charter of Barbados, will continue to have for our people. Because without this, we will not be fit for purpose. Without this, we will not make the journey. But with it, we can be nimble, more than most, because smallness gives us that nimbleness and that agility, and smallness gives us still the ability to produce global citizens with Bajan roots. And smallness allows us to punch above our weight, as we are seeing still as we fight so many battles regionally and internationally. I ask simply this evening that we take the lesson of today, that no matter how far we go, and no matter how long the journey, that we never forget those who helped us along the way start that journey. The renaming of this polyclinic this evening in the name of Freddie Miller, is intended to remind us and to anchor us that this journey is made up through the contributions of many, 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 many. And furthermore, even as we speak, and you saw me consulting with William Duguid, who is an extended member of the family, I believe, as well, but who has been, as the point person for Senior Minister on Infrastructure and Investment with me, has been managing our relationship. And Barbados has developed that reputation for a strong platform of educational and medical services, because that is what we've trained our people to do best. And even though there are other things we must now get into, that, Dr. Ward, is our core. And that core has meant, therefore, that especially with the successful management, relatively speaking, of our last few years with the pandemic, others have now been approaching us as a place where they believe that they can make investments to be able to expand the provision of medical and dental services. And before the government, therefore, lies one clear provision for the establishment of a dental school, which is now advancing at a far quicker rate than it had been during the pandemic, obviously, and 3 proposals for hospitals, not only focused on domestic care, but a combination of domestic care and medical tourism. We have the talent and the capacity. We need simply now to set the vision and the standards and to ensure that we do not fall from them. My friends, therefore, this evening, it gives me great, great, great pleasure and tremendous pride, recognizing that much of the mentorship that many of us have received had its owner not necessarily in Dame Billy, but in those from whom she had received it. And therefore, when I speak about the passing of the baton, I truly speak to it with a purpose, but also with a commitment that just as we have received from you, and you received from the generation of Sir Grantley and your father, that we have an obligation to pass on to all for the next generation. And I say so conscious, and I said it recently, that this country has been able to do it across political lines and with a dignity. In fact, when I spoke at Sir Wes Hall's launch of his book, the camaraderie and the decency that has attached itself to political life in Barbados must be one of the most cherished things that we pass to the next generation. And the people who will ensure it more than anyone else is the ordinary citizens of this country, who must forever insist on that type of behavior as the hallmark for the conduct of public life in this country. My friends, thank you very much, and I look forward, therefore, to us unveiling the name. And Billy, Luther, Cecil, Buddy, you sacrificed much in sharing your father with this nation. It is something we don't talk about, But anyone who comes from a political family knows that there is much damage along the way, and that very often we do not take sufficient time to understand the implications of what service means, as we heard from the General Secretary at the beginning. We do not, therefore, take that sacrifice for granted. And I see Lark and Pat and the others here, and we know that you also have had on your own side similar journeys. We do not take this sacrifice for granted. And in our small way this evening, we say thank you to you. But just as I did with the Supreme Court, I believe that the Ministry of Health must now also find different rooms and different spaces to also salute the public health nurses and the other people who help to make this public health system one of the best, not just in the region, but in the Americas. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, by your round of applause, please acknowledge the Honorable Mia Amor-Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados. There's a talented young lady here this afternoon. She's been a finalist in the Pick of the Crop competition multiple times. She's a multiple award winner. She is comfortable in any genre, whether it is R&B, reggae, calypso, or gospel. Please put your hands together, and I understand a daughter of St. George Saul. Please welcome Donella doing The Impossible Dream.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, I am from the parish of St. George. I'm very proud of it. I hope you enjoy this selection, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sure most of you know it, so please feel free to sing along. Let's have a good time here this evening. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, and to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, and to love pure and chaste from afar, to find when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to be willing to fight without question or pause.
to be willing to march into hell for that heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest, and the world will be better for this. Oh, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strode with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable, the unreachable, the unreachable star. Dream the impossible dream, yeah, and I'll reach the unreachable star.
Thank you very much.
St. George is showing off this evening. Another round of applause for Danella, ladies and gentlemen. You know, in listening to the lyrics of the song, The Impossible Dream, and I started to think more about the legacy of Freddie Miller and what sets him apart. Because I know there's so many people who dream, but the difference is those individuals, those special individuals who understand, I'm going to dream, but I'm going to wake up every single day and take another step and put in the work that's necessary to accomplish that dream. Wonderful indeed. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the citation on Mr. Frederick Miller, please welcome the Deputy Permanent Secretary acting the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Ms. Jillian Applewhite.
The Honorable Mia Amor Mortley, Prime Minister of Barbados, other members of Cabinet, members of Parliament, the Most Honorable Janet Phillips, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. the Most Honorable Kenneth George, Chief Medical Officer of Health, children of the late Frederick Miller, other relatives of the late Frederick Miller, officials in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, specially invited guests, members of the media, good evening. Let me start by not apologizing for repeating some of the things that you had already heard from Dr. Sonia Brown, but given the importance of this occasion, I think it important that you be reminded. A passion for the sea, a passion for the arts, a passion for learning, but most importantly, a passion for the people. Freddie Miller, also known as the Skipper, started his career in engineering at the now-defunct Barbados Central Foundry. He became an electrician and later taught himself the specialty of refrigeration engineering. Mr. Miller built and opened Miller Brothers Ice Factory at Tudor Street in the city of Bridgetown in an era where engineers were usually imported from England for such an enterprise. Following the riots in 1937, Mr. Miller joined the growing labor movement, became a member of Parliament in 1948, and represented the parish of St. George until 1966. As a member of Parliament, Mr. Miller held the ministerial portfolios of Health and Social Services from 1956 to 1961. During his term as minister, he was responsible for the establishment of district hospitals, particularly Oistins, which was opened to the public in December 1960, along with an outpatients clinic and dispensary, the operation of open-air child welfare clinics, ensuring that day nurseries were maintained with financial support of the government, the introduction of the Environmental Sanitation Program in 1959, which aimed to improve sanitary conditions in households across Barbados, the training of midwives to raise the standards of child and maternal welfare on the island, the provision of visual and dental treatment for school children, the introduction of the medical aid scheme, which continues today to provide funds for assisting with medical treatment overseas in cases of serious illness for less privileged persons, and the construction of public health centers in Speightstown, Enmore, Oistins, and Six Roads for the provision of public health services. There were also significant legislative achievements during Mr. Miller's term as minister. In 1959, the Local Government Act 1958 and the Public Health Act 1954 were both put into effect. The purpose of the Local Government Act was to make better provision for social government, while the Public Health Act consolidated and amended the acts of the island to place responsibility for sanitation on the local government councils in place of 11 boards. It can also be argued that as Minister of Health and Social Services, Mr. Miller would have laid the foundation for the introduction of a more comprehensive primary healthcare system in the 1960s to complement the opening of the newly built 550-bed Queen Elizabeth Hospital in 1964. Ladies and gentlemen, 74 years ago, Mr. Frederick Freddie Miller went from entrepreneur to minister, serving the community of St. George, but more importantly, serving his nation. He took his entrepreneurial skill to the public service, and he did so with a sense of style which was buttressed by his compassion for people, for their welfare, and for their health care. Today, we laud his contribution with an indelible mark. Today, we write his name on history's page. Frederick Freddie Miller, also known as the Skipper. We salute his contribution to the health and social services of Barbados. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Jillian Applewhite, Deputy Permanent Secretary acting in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this next individual has a resume that includes titles such as Attorney at Law, Politician, Parliamentarian, Deputy Prime Minister, Ambassador, Chairperson. But I think it's safe to say this evening that the title which she is most proud of is Daughter of Frederick Freddie Miller. Please welcome Dame Billy Miller, everybody.
Yes, this is good. Thank you very much. Frederick Edward Miller was born in 1910. Electricity came to Barbados in 1911. He had won a Vestry scholarship to Wesley Hall Boys School and went on to Combermere. All right, Combermere, you understand? Yes, yes, yes. The Miller family lived on Reed Street, just off Baxter's Road, where he set up his business and had his workshop until he moved his family to Brighton, Blackrock. When he left Combermere and went to the Central Foundry, he met there a lathe for the first time. Sometimes on a Sunday afternoon, he would take us for a drive in M22, a red pickup. Wherever he planned to take us, it was always via St. George. So we got to know the St. George constituency, and we got to know all of his chief canvassers, a whole name of them now. Some of them have passed on. During canvassing time, my parents took me with them. I learned a lot about canvassing, and sometimes I would be left at the home of his chief canvassers, where I would play with their children. He joined the Progressive League, which later became what we know now as the Barbados Labour Party. The BLP lost the government in 1961. Freddie Miller was the only minister to retain his seat. When he left the Ministry of Health and Social Services, he left the outline for the National Insurance Scheme on his desk, together with the plans for what was to become the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I can speak of my own knowledge about the National Insurance Scheme. A man called Humphrey Walcott was his right-hand man when this was being brought to life. And today, when they built the National Insurance, it's quite a big number of housing that we have there. It was named for he who really put in his work for long hours to put this scheme together, and with the plans for what was to come, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital as well. Now, government headquarters, as we know where it is now, opposite the Esplanade on Bay Street, was where all of the ministries could fit at that time. Nowadays they can't. But when he left the Ministry of Health and Social Services, meaning my father, it's a strange happening. That was in 1961, when we lost the government. And it is a strange thing that years after that, in 1976, when we won the government again, the late, great Tom Adams called me and said to me, it was after the election, "Where have you been? I've been calling you for 2 days now." I said, "But Prime Minister, I was driving around in Minimo thanking all of the people who voted for me in the city of Bridgetown." He said, "Yes, but all of your colleagues are sitting on the telephone waiting for me to call them and tell them which ministry I'm going to give them." So I said, "Well, what shall I do?" He said, "You go and ask your father, and you go and ask your boyfriend, and then you call me back and say yes." Gospel. But in all seriousness, every morning, driving up Bay Street, he would detour to the site where the Queen Elizabeth Hospital was being built. He and a man called Captain Tomlin, who was damaged in the Second World War, an Englishman, and he came to live in Barbados, but he was a super engineer. And, you know, they would sit and talk at length about all kinds of things, and it turned out beautifully. But I am really here tonight on behalf of the family of the Millers to say thank you to the government and the people of Barbados for this honor being bestowed upon the late Frederick Edward Miller. It is a tribute that we are never going to forget in our family. And I want to thank you all for the kindnesses that you have shown us in the difficult days. And now that it's come to pass, I'm giddy with excitement. I speak truthfully, and we are deeply, deeply thankful to the Barbados Labour Party and friends. I was going to say the family of the Millers, but in truth and in fact, it is more than a family. It is, oh dear, I lost my word now. It was a family to say thank you, but in truth and in fact, it's a tribe. And they're all over this room. And I am grateful and thankful. We're going through many, many generations now. Dr. Duguid, he's a second cousin, and his mom sitting there is a first cousin. And then they're everywhere. But one thing about them, they work hard. And when they become committed to something, they stay committed to it and will not give it up until it's brought to good fruition. But I am very deeply moved here this evening. Some people think I'm a tough woman and so on, and that I'm not a gentle lady. But the truth is, this is perhaps one of the best nights of my life. Really is. And I thank you all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, by your show of applause, Dame Billy Miller. Dame Billy is truly, truly, truly the embodiment of what a wonderful legacy means. The Miller legacy, multiple generations, as she mentioned, are of course represented here today. And I think that makes this moment so much more special because there are multiple generations understanding the contribution that has been made. And so I think it would be remiss of me not to ask all the members of the Miller tribe to please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, the Miller family. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the vote of thanks, please welcome the Deputy Chief Public Health Nurse, Miss LaRon Highland. Please give her a warm welcome.
Honorable Prime Minister, Mayor Amor Montley, other honorable members of Parliament and Cabinet and senior government officials, Dame Billy Miller, and members of the Miller tribe, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First, let me thank Senator Reverend Dr. John Rogers for invoking God's presence on our proceedings. And Reverend Rogers, I want to thank you for more than that. I want to thank you for adopting the polyclinic at Glebe, is what I will call it for now, and really embracing the staff here. So thank you for all your work at the polyclinic, as well as for invoking God's presence this evening. I want to thank Dr. Karawa, the Medical Officer of Health, for his warm words of welcome this evening, as well as Honorable Tony Moore, Parliamentary Representative for St. George North, and our Minister of Health and Wellness Acting, Dr. the Honorable Sonia Brown. Thank you both for your remarks. young Mr. Daniel Harvey, the young saxophonist. What can I say? He gave me goosebumps. I'm sure I'm not the only person that had goosebumps this evening. Also, Danella, with her musical rendition, that gave me goosebumps too. So I'm now all goosebumped out. Our Prime Minister Motley, for your official address. Let me tell you, somebody asked me, Prime Minister Motley, how many hours you have in your day. I knew it was a trick question, so I didn't even attempt to answer it. But we thank you for your service, not just your words this evening, but for your service to this country. We thank you. I want to thank our Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Gillian Applewaite, for delivering her citation. But not only that, DPS Applewaite, also for all the background work that you would have done in bringing this event together here this evening. And our Prime Minister would say, many hands make light work. So I want to thank the Planning Committee, comprising of some members of the admin team within the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the technical management team, who also would have assisted with the preparation, and the staff at Glebe Polyclinic. So thank you all very much. Dame Billy Miller and the Miller clan, tribe, family, all of you, I want to thank all of you for consenting to this name change. For in doing that, you have created an opportunity for us here and for future Barbadians to share in the legacy of your patriarch. And we thank you for that. The members of the media, all who provided and supported protocol, logistics, security, all of you team members, I thank you. Some other agencies to thank include the National Conservation Commission, which I'm sure would have helped with beautifying the grounds, and we expect it will be kept to this standard from now on. The Barbados Fire Service, the Ministry of Transport, Works and Water Resources. I also want to thank Corbin's Catering, DP Productions, who is responsible for the song, decor, and stage management, all beautifully put together. Pixel Designs for the programs, Creative Junction, the live music stream, the live stream, and Everything Branded for the signage, Gittins and Company for the plaques. Madam Master of Ceremonies, allow me to thank you for having run a very smooth evening. We thank you. Again, I say, in the words of our Prime Minister, many hands make light work. So I want to thank all the background persons who would have done things in the background. Usually when I give the vote of thanks, people tell me, but you didn't remember to thank me. So all those that I forgot, a sincere thanks from the depth of my heart. And in closing, allow me to thank Mr. Andre Ford and Kian, who will provide the musical interlude during our cocktail reception. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for being here. It was an honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Laron Highland. And now, of course, the moment we've all been waiting for will be the unveiling of the official renaming of the Glebe Polyclinic. And I invite the official unveiling party, who will be escorted over to the building. And I'll ask that all other members of the audience please remain seated. We'll be able to view it on the screens. So if we could please have Prime Minister Motley, Minister Brown, Minister Sutherland, Senator Tony Moore, Dame Billy, Luther Miller, Cecile Hadgu, the Most Honorable Janet Phillips, and Dr. Carl Ward will be escorted over to the building. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be able to view the official unveiling via screen. And what's special about this moment as well, because it will be simultaneously unveiled the sign on the building, there will be a sign above the door, and there will be a sign on the entrance as well. So when you approach the polyclinic, you'll be able to see the name on the wall at the main entrance, as well as the plaque on the building, and then above the door as well, you'll be able to see the new name of the polyclinic. So again, the official party includes Prime Minister Motley, Minister Brown, Minister Sutherland, MP Tony Moore, Dame Billy, Luther Miller, Bill Hadgu, Dr. Carl Ward, and the Most Honorable Janet Phillips, Permanent Secretary. And the moment we've all been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen, the official renaming of the Glebe Polyclinic. I'm trying to say the Glebe Polyclinic lots of times because I will never say it again after this. So this, what you're seeing now, ladies and gentlemen, is the plaque on the building above the door of the entrance of the building will bear the new name, as well as the entrance. As you approach the main entrance from the street, you'll be able to see the official name as well. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the official renaming of the Glebe Polyclinic. Today it becomes the Freddie Miller Polyclinic at the Glebe St. George. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for the Freddie Miller Polyclinic located at the Glebe St. George. Today is a wonderful testament to the work and the legacy of Frederick Miller. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, please, a round of applause. The unveiling will be followed by a cocktail reception and a musical presentation featuring Mr. Andre Ford, who is a professional pianist, as well as Keon Waters on vocals. And of course, during the cocktail reception, we do invite you to get a closer look at the plaque, take photos, because we really want to commemorate this wonderful occasion.
lovely day, 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 lovely day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we do invite you to enjoy the cocktail reception. This now concludes the official part of the ceremony, where you're invited, of course, to enjoy the cocktails, and you'll be doing so to the music of Mr. Andre Ford and Ms. Ian Walters. And of course, we also invite you to take a closer look at the new name, Frederick Freddie Miller Polyclinic at the Glebe St. George. While you're sure of applause, ladies and gentlemen, once again, as we acknowledge the official renaming of the Frederick Freddie Miller Polyclinic at the Glebe. Thank you so much.